from the Energy Boutique with your energy and ascension forecast for Sunday, August 3rd to Saturday, August 9th. So last week we had Chiron, the wounded healer, go retrograde in this Aries energy on the 30th. And of course, that was kind of amplified by Venus, the goddess of love, beauty, worth, pleasure, and money, sitting at that 29 critical crisis karmic degree of Gemini energy while Chiron did his thing prior to Venus shifting into Cancer energy also on the 30th. So some major waves definitely got triggered and activated with those two events. And of course, we had Mercury and the Sun come together for their Cazimi here on the 31st. So that marked the halfway point of Mercury's retrograde. It opened us up to receiving information and insights that are going to start trickling in here over the next 10 days. And of course, it knocked the absolute snot out of all of us. Definitely sucked that physical energy right out of the equation. And it set us up for today when we entered into August. And of course, new vibration, new frequency, new life lesson comes with August. And it's amplified by the first quarter moon that just popped off in Scorpio energy here this morning. So we're still definitely adjusting. And again, it's been quite a week, specifically where the energies are concerned. I do have a couple of comments that I want to make about that when we get going here. But I just did want to kind of set the scene that it's been pretty choppy in the emotional and energetic ocean here this week. And of course, with this first quarter moon in Scorpio that popped off this morning, we are definitely feeling the intensities of where it is that something's got to give, something's got to break. We got our back up against a wall. We got to make some changes. We have to really see a major transformation take place in our physical realms to release us from this very heavy holding pattern. But this week, of course, we're going to kick off the very first week of August with Mars, the god of war, ruling over our physical energy, drive, passion, desire, even our anger, finishing up his time in Virgo energy, and he will be shifting into Libra energy here on the 6th. That's going to be a major transition, specifically with the last kind of 2 days while he's still in that Virgo energy sitting at the 29th critical crisis karmic degree. It's definitely going to ruffle some feathers. It's going to kind of trigger some internal frustration, agitation, maybe even rage. And hopefully we can get a grip on ourselves so that we don't project that energy outwardly. But it would also not surprise me if we seen a major uproar take place on the greater global stage with this particular transition. When Mars moves into that Libra energy, we're going to have major kerfuffles with the oppositions to, of course, Saturn and Neptune, both retrograde in Aries energy. And of course, Mars is in his fall in Libra energy, hates being there. He's at his weakest point. And to oppose the Lord of Karma and Neptune, who rules over our intuition, our spirituality, our dreams, our creativity in his rulership in Aries energy, definitely going to be a little bit of a shitstorm. And of course, we're building towards the full moon taking place in Aquarius energy here on the 9th. That is going to be a major pivot point where a new level of information and awareness is going to totally shock and probably awe and probably appall not only us as individuals, but the collective as well. And of course, this is going to be the last full week of Mercury being retrograde, which thankfully is coming to an end. And let me also just say that if you're wondering why I'm not listing the Lionsgate portal, it's because it does not exist. Okay, there is some special energies coming at us between August 8th and August 11th specifically, maybe even carrying into the 13th, but none of that has to do with the Lionsgate portal. And if you're like, what? What is she talking about? I definitely welcome you to take a listen to August's energy forecast, to that overview that I put out. And if you're wondering how to access that full forecast, please hit the join button that you see below these videos. That is where all the daily energy forecasts and the astrology forecasts are posted for members. And thank those of you that have already joined that channel. I would encourage those of you that want to stay ahead of the game, especially with the energies coming at us here in August, to join that channel to stay in alignment with all of the energy and astrology forecasts that I will be publishing as they come. So with that being said, if you're wondering why I sound a little bit weird, I feel like I am dying. I am getting my absolute energetic and physical body ass kicked here, and I feel absolutely horrible. So if this feels rushed at all, it is. I can't wait to get this over with so I can curl up in a ball and kind of, stabilize in the areas that I need to be stabilizing in. Now, one of my theories here is that we had a pretty potent energetic week, let me just say, without kind of going into a lot of details that are going to get me even further kicked off of this particular channel and algorithm, that the earthquake that a particular area of the world experienced that had a repercussion, consequential type of tsunami that followed, that was a man-made event. And of course, we all, we don't want to see any harm come to anyone here on this earth plane. But when they start messing with these man-made events on top of energy harvesting events, such as the Ozzy Osbourne funeral happening at the same time, when I say to you that they are really, really grasping at straws to create enough energy in this cosmos to activate the portals that they're having a hard time activating, it has a major, major impact, and not a great one, on those of us that are holding the source codes. And when you have these DNA packets unfolding in you with all of these activations, and they're being triggered and activated in an unorganic way, it does an absolute number on the physical body for those of us that are learning to basically channel these energies and alchemize it into something better. And the way that I've been feeling throughout the course of this past week has definitely been a unorganic type of energy response. And I know many people in my community alone have been saying the same thing, that something feels off, doesn't feel right. And, the normal ascension symptoms that many of us are kind of used to at this particular point in this healing journey, they're all out of whack. They're being amplified. It's almost like they're on, artificial junky steroids, the cheap ones. And it doesn't feel good. And so, I hate to be a fear mongerer, and I hate to kind of plant not so nice seeds in everybody's mind. But when these man-made energetic events take place for their agenda, it absolutely messes up the natural flow of energy that many of us are still uncomfortably, but still used to harnessing. And so, I do have a little bit of a gut feeling that a lot of the events that we watched on the greater, grander global stage here this past week were definitely connected. They were definitely man-made, and they definitely succeeded in making a lot of us feel absolutely horrible. But I don't think they succeeded in opening the gates that they were looking to open. So if you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. That being said, still doesn't minimize the fact that I feel absolutely horrible, and I know a lot of people do. And it's really hard when you go ahead and you tap into your resources, your toolbox, if you will, to manage some of these ascension symptoms, and they don't work. And that's how you can tell whether it's organic or man-made. What usually works isn't going to touch this. This is like energetic poisoning, if you will. And because of that, our bodies are going to now need to go through a little bit of a detox. And as we go through this detox, we also have to be raising our energetic shields to a new level of stability, of protection, of defense, to protect from the next attempt that they are going to make for their own agenda to create energy in this cosmos, in this universe, to force open the gateways that they are looking to force open. So, when we talk about SpaceX and all these rockets that blow up, they're not blowing up on accident. They're trying to create an electrical charge in order to force the agenda that they're looking to force, because they're desperately grasping at straws. They need to open up the gates in order to allow their army, let's call them, their legion, to take hold, to take control. And lucky for us, most of the most recent attempts that they have made to create an unorganic electrical charge here in this earth plane, it has not worked in their favor, but it's also not working in our favor, because we're harnessing all that artificial energy and we're basically stuck with it. And so it is a little bit of an energetic poisoning situation going on. That's why we feel horrible. That's why we feel like our nervous system is absolutely hijacked, because it is. When we're channeling, real energy, yeah, it kind of feels uncomfortable in the physical form, but you try channeling artificial energy, and that is when the physical body doesn't know what to do and it gets overwhelmed, the nervous system gets fried, and essentially we are stuck in a physical vessel that is rejecting the energy that is being forced through our energetic bodies. So definitely don't feel good with this latest quote unquote attack, but we are spiritual warriors. We're here to do what needs to be done. And sometimes we need to fight it from the couch, from the couch, curled up in a ball. And that's where my day is calling for me. So we will be kind of shuffling through this particular forecast with a little bit more struggle than I'm used to and a little bit more pressure than I usually apply, because I feel like I'm going to fall out of my chair. So with complete transparency, let's dive into it. We, at this particular point in time, again, need to go through a little bit of a detox in order to kind of, again, set the parameters of our energetic shields and our defense mechanisms that much higher. Our crown is popping, and this week our crown is going to be popping off even more. We have a lot of Neptune energy, and on top of that full moon, which typically amplifies and intensifies the energy anyways, and specifically we're in Aquarius energy, that is bringing in new consciousness. And so that consciousness comes in through the crown at the top of the head. You could have a headache. You could have tingling in your head. Your head is probably going to feel very hot. And if you've been with me for any amount of time, you would know that my go-to is to put up a hood or put on a hat or a toque or a bandana, preferably black in color, because that black energy kind of slows those energies down. And it does kind of take the edge off, if you will, of some of those intensities. So we do have to understand that it could feel like your hair hurts. It could feel like you have a moving headache. There's going to be a lot of pressure going on with the headspace. And of course, that is going to create a little bit of dizziness, a little bit of disorientation, discombobulation in us. Feels very confusing. And a lot of this confusion is the overlap of this absolute man-made energetic shit show that we're currently sitting in, trying to clear that junk and gunk out of our physical, mental, emotional, and energetic bodies, and kind of reset our bodies to the normal energies that we should be bringing into our form. But this is almost going to create a little bit of a divide, a little bit of a questioning within thyself, because we don't know what's real and what's not. We also are very confused on, did that happen? Did I dream it or did I live it? Did I imagine it or did I actually experience it? And this is also stemming from the reorganization of our memory banks in our, I'm going to call it our brains, but also in our energetic brains as well. There is a major pivot point that we just crossed throughout the course of this past week, specifically with the nodes of the moon there. And we are going to have some activations with those nodes of the moon as well this week that should kind of, I'm going to say, draw a line in the sand between what we thought was real and actually isn't versus what is real and we didn't even think for 2 seconds that it could be. A lot of this is the merging of the interdimensional bleed that we talked about in last week's forecast. A lot of this is, again, if you consider the fact that the false energetic poison that we're currently sitting in is going to be dissipating, and then we return to the natural energies that we're used to kind of harnessing, that bleed is going to kind of lead us into this questioning period as well. So it's very much like, who am I? What the F is happening? Did that actually happen? Did I dream it? Did I live it? Did I imagine it? What is going on? That is just the bleed time taking place. And if you're wondering why this bleed is taking place, it's because we are in the final weeks of quote unquote normal energies. We are being sucked into the eclipse season that will be kicking off here in September. And a lot of the activations that we experience in August, specifically due to some of the energetic alignments that take place between August 8th and August 11th. And again, I'm not talking about those quote unquote Lionsgate portal, because it's not even a thing. A lot of these activations do align us with the higher realms of ourselves and the higher realms of intelligence that give us the coding to strengthen the original source code within us so that, again, we can differentiate when we end up in these situations where the false code is being forced into our coding. And so it doesn't feel good. And it feels like we're at war with ourselves, and it feels like we're at war with everyone else. And it's absolutely exhausting. And with a nervous system that isn't functioning well and our mental health taking a dive because we feel like we're going absolutely shit crazy, it's going to be quite a time. Now, the mental health issue, let me just say, if you feel like you just, like, what's the point? Like, what are we doing? Like, why do we even care anymore? Why do I even try anymore? Then unfortunately for you, but fortunately for you, you're exactly where it is that you need to be. We're in the depths of retrograde season, and retrograde season literally shows you the past situations, circumstances, memories, relationship dynamics, all of your karmic lessons that you've already gone through, that you've already lived through. They are essentially being scanned, whether you're aware of them or not. They're being scanned in your energetic body. They're being reviewed in your energetic body, whether you're aware of it or not. And it brings this, I'm going to call it existential crisis. It brings this dark pit. It brings this void up within us where we literally just don't even know what we're fighting for anymore. And it can definitely do a absolute number on your mental health, especially if you haven't really strengthened your talents and skills and discernment. And even if you have, it's a very challenging time because, again, you don't know who you are. You don't know what's going on. You don't know what you're fighting for. You don't know why you get up every day and fight a war that nobody else can see. And it can be very overwhelming and very overstimulating. And this week specifically, the brain fog of this disassociation and discombobulation that I just talked about, it turns into a brain fog / brain fart. Like, you can't even recall some of the simplest of terms. We talked about a little bit, we touched on this anyways in last week's forecast, but it's definitely going to come to a brand new intensity here this week because, again, we just got essentially energetically poisoned, and it's going to take some time for those drugs to wear off. And when we're talking about drugs, there is this unconscious drunken stupor that I often refer to Mercury's retrograde as, and that's exactly what you can apply to all the other planets that are retrograde as well. It's almost as if we're in this altered state of consciousness. And because our physical bodies don't really know what's going on, and our energetic body isn't solely 100% conscious of what's going on either, it's all kind of a blur. And when those energies become a blur, it makes many of us spiral, and specifically those of us that are picking up on the collective's energies, because it's our job to bring them into our physical form and apply all the resources, all the toolbox, techniques that we've learned thus far through this ascension journey. And then they don't work. There's an element of defeat there. And when we bring in the collective's energy, and that too has been man-made and implemented with this, toxic coding pattern, it's really hard to know what is real and what isn't, and what is ours to feel and what is ours to own. And so that becomes a little bit hard on the head as well. Of course, we're still in Leo season. Pretty hard to get away from heart activations in Leo season because it is all about the heart space. But we also have Venus in Cancer now, and that in itself is a major heart activation. There is this pull back to the past, back to past relationships, past bad habits, past bad, versions of self, if you will. And even though we know that we've moved on from that we've healed from that we're doing better now than we were back then, there's like this draw, this calling to kind of reflect back on it and romanticize it in a way that it didn't even exist. And that has a major tug of war going on in our heart space. The Cancer energy has us stuck in the past. The Leo energy has us anchored into the present moment. And the full moon in Aquarius that we are about to experience here towards the end of the week is going to catapult us so far into the future so that we gain a vision, a clarity, a snapshot of where it is that essentially we are going to end up. There is a lot of prophetic downloads coming to us this week. We're going to be feeling torn through all different versions of self, through our heart and our head, through past, present, and future. And again, that interdimensional bleed is going to continue to intensify as we realize that, we are definitely facing old memories, old feelings, old habits, old patterns, old behaviors, old karma, while operating from this new version of self. And this is all part of kind of, rewriting, if you will, that programming, the ego avatar programming. So those heart activations are definitely going to get intense at times. And I would say midweek, specifically when we have Mars sitting in that 29th critical crisis degree of Virgo energy, it's going to feel like we're falling apart on the inside, and that there's like this internalized anger that just has us kind of busting out as our seams, agitated as all F. And it feels like this inner rage just wants to come out to play. And we have to remember that this is an element of the self-sabotaging program that we have to face head on in order to realize that we are not those people anymore. We cannot fall victim to those old programs anymore, that we cannot take action into old habits that we have essentially healed from anymore. It's time to boss up. It's time to kind of face the demons, if you will. I hate to use that word because that brings out all this religious bullshit crap that we all need to get rid of. But when we talk about, facing the dragon, let's call them dragons, facing the dragon, so to speak, like you really got to be standing face to face, nose to nose with that dragon and hold that line, even if your voice shakes, to realize that we are drawing a line in the sand and that we will never go back to, return to who it is that we once were, who it is that we fought so hard to get away from, and crushing the habits of the mental plane, of the emotions, of the physical body that we used to throw ourselves into to numb, to run, to hide from said dragon. So it's definitely going to be an inner realm activation of how much power and control we have to hold the line, to stand the ground in this new version of self, in this new footing, when everything is screaming at us to just give in, to just go back to what is tried, tested, true, what is comfortable and familiar, which is disassociating, running from, escaping this physical reality. But of course, we cannot do that. We are going to have a lot of digestive issues that pop off with Mars sitting at that 29 critical crisis karmic degree of that Virgo energy as well. I think many of us have been all up in the digestive issues just with the Virgo energy kind of pinging off, and now Cancer energy that Venus is in. There's just a lot of worry. There's a lot of anxiety. There's a lot of angst. We're trying to keep our shit together without falling apart in the outer realm, but our inner realm is kind of, barely hanging on by a thread. And so those digestive issues are going to be something to contend with. But even more than that, I think there's going to be liver issues specifically. And I think there's going to be lymph node issues. Now, the lymph nodes and the liver is all part of the detox process in our physical body, where the mechanics of our organs are concerned. We hold a lot of anger and frustration in our bodies, and that manifests in the liver. We also have this detox that we're currently going through, not only by being energetically poisoned over this last week by these man-made events and this absolute shit storm of artificial energy that they're trying to create in our cosmos, but we are also detoxing from the old avatar's programming. Again, now with Chiron retrograde, that is the healing coding within us, the wounded healer. We all get born into this lifetime with the previous incarnation wounds and with the wounds that we have to kind of accumulate in this lifetime. But also, we also have the cure. We have the wisdom, the knowledge within us to fix, heal, and repair any wound that we came into this lifetime with, or that we kind of accumulate in this lifetime. And that's what Chiron is all about. And now that he's in a retrograde, joining the other heavy-hitting planets in a retrograde, specifically Mercury, with this last week of our ability to kind of flip the script in a very powerful way with Mr. Mercury, there's just a deep dive in the greatest, deepest, darkest wounds that we're still bearing while still healing and still anchoring in this newest version of self. So the lymph nodes, of course, we did touch on this last week, but I think that, we really have to experience the full effects of inflamed lymph nodes and nymphodes. I'm not editing that out. You can decide whether you want to put that in the book of Marleyisms or not. Anywho, the lymph nodes, they get inflamed when there is too much basically toxins and poisons floating through our bloodstream, and they're unable to actually, go through the proper mechanic channels in order to detox through our liver, to all of our organs, and get out of our body. And so, of course, with all the junk and the gunk, not only floating through our physical form, but now in our energetic form, I feel like the lymph nodes are definitely going to give us a little bit of a tough go. Now, that being said, you got to treat your body with a little bit more kindness, a little bit more respect, even though you're mad at hell at it because it feels like it's failing you. It's not failing you. It's just the vessel has, sustained a little bit of damage. And so we need to kind of put that vessel in the garage for a little minute, put it up on a lift, give it a good look over, see where it is, that the oil is thick, that it needs to be kind of, it needs to be renovated. It needs to be kind of amped up, pepped up, just a tad. So those lymph nodes, if you think of those lymph nodes as all the different fluids running through the vehicle, we need to change out those fluids. They've been contaminated, they're junky, they're gunky, they're coagulating when they shouldn't. And so there is a detox that we do need to go through, and we do need to help ourselves through, which of course is staying away from a lot of those processed foods, a lot of the things that of course slow our physical vessels down. We need to kind of kill ourselves with kindness. And you do that by paying special attention to, the areas which these aches and pains are kind of arising. You do what you can to purify the blood. You do what you can to make sure that you're hydrated, flushing out that system. You do the lymph node massage in order to open up those meridians and those channels and those, those toxic channels that we need to make sure are, working properly to get the junk and the gunk out of our form. This week, though, I think our physical bodies are going to be slow moving. I think there's going to be a lot more discomfort in the physical form than we've experienced in a very long time. Again, that comes with, carrying too much weight, physically, emotionally, mentally, and energetically speaking. And because the moon is moving through Sagittarius, Capricorn, and Aquarius here this week, Sagittarius energy is going to have us kind of seeing the struggle in our hips and in our upper thighs, maybe even Charlie horses, tremors, just feeling riled up and ready to go with nowheres to go, if you will, with all that energy bouncing around within you. The Capricorn transit, of course, is going to illuminate where the physical body feels heavy and weighted, where it feels like the bones are just not working right. They're not sitting right. Bones cracking, the rigidity in our joints, just slow moving, like cold molasses uphill in the wintertime. It just feels like we need to slow down a tad. It also feels like things are, kind of swollen in the joints, but kind of out of joint as well. It just feels like, even when you're standing, the structure of your skeletal system, of your overall physical body, just something feels out of whack. It feels out of alignment. Maybe you need to, crack your back. Maybe you need to get the tension out of your ankles or wherever it is that these energy cluster Fs are building up in the physical form. A lot of knee pain and knee accidents. So definitely watch out for that. We trap a lot of fear in our knees. And when we go through this transitional detox phase, and when we are being faced with a lot of second guessing and questioning of who it is that we are and what it is that we're trying to do and why it is that we're doing all this, that can definitely activate some of the fear and tension that we hold in the lower extremities as well. Of course, there is, I know I touched on this, but this like existential dread, this emotional and spiritual overwhelm. Like, we're exhausted. We are so fatigued. It is just absolutely amazing that we can, just when we think things can't get any tougher or rougher, or we can't feel any more beat up, here we are, we get a next level of it. And so it's interesting because this week we're going to kind of fluctuate from feeling everything to feeling nothing, to being attached to everything to detached to nothing. And it's just going to be this teeter-totter. And when we talk about teeter-totter, we typically speaking talk about Libra energy. And once Mars moves into this Libra energy, it is going to be a teeter-totter of kind of, exploring those extremes in order for us to find a comfortable sweet spot. And it's not going to come easy, and it's not going to feel good. We're definitely not going to resolve it here this week. And so the realization that emotionally speaking, we feel like we're falling apart when realistically we're falling back together in a much more organic way. We just have to remind ourselves that this is part of the process. Now, there is going to be a lot of intense psychic downloads here this week. Neptune will be popping off. We have the full moon in Aquarius bringing a new level of consciousness into the collective as well, which means that when the collective loses their mind and loses their shit, those of us that alchemize the collective's energies, we pick up on that as well. This is why it is very helpful while we're going through this very interesting energetic detox here this week to remind yourself of what it is that you've been doing, to anchor into what is tried, tested, and true, to remind yourself of what is real. And that requires staying in the body, which most people don't want to do because the body hurts. So we have to figure out how to make being in the body comfortable. And with Jupiter and Cancer, that's, essentially what that particular life lesson is how can we feel safe and secure and comfortable, not only within our own skin, but in the physical realm when essentially we know that we are under attack. We're in a spiritual war, whether you want to believe it or not, whether you want to feel it or not, doesn't matter. It's happening. It's going to blur the lines here this week, specifically because our dreamscape, although our dreamscape has been wackadoodle as of late, it is going to reach a new level of weird. Why is that, you may ask? Well, because again, we have a lot of crown activations this week. The full moon in Aquarius brings in a new level of consciousness, which therefore is going to majorly impact the astral realm. We have Neptune activations, specifically with Mars going head to head with Saturn and Neptune retrograde in that Libra energy. If you want more depth and detail on what that particular transit is going to be, again, I'm going to welcome you to take a listen to the August energy overview. And, the dream content that we're going to be receiving is going to be so real here this week that, again, we wake up and we're like, damn, did I live that or did I dream it? Because our physical body is going to have an immediate response to whatever it is that we're experiencing in the astral realm. And again, this is part of the recalibration that we need to go through. When the astral realm shifts, the physical energy in this earth realm shifts, there's like an imbalance that we have to try and rebalance. And that alignment, although it's tough, this is where the interdimensional bleed comes from. This is where the two parts of self that are at war with each other come from. It's a back and forth ebb and flow that doesn't feel comfortable at all, but we will eventually kind of strike that new middle ground, that new common ground where the alignment of, our higher selves, our astral selves, our physical selves, our energetic selves, they are going to come into alignment, but it's a very tedious process until we actually get there. That psychic confusion, that psychic overwhelm, we are going to have a wave of not so nice energies trying to regain their power back here this week, especially after the shit show that they created here last week and it didn't work in their favor at all. You know what happens when you go and you try and do something and it doesn't work. You get frustrated and agitated and you double down and just try anything. And that's where the dark forces are currently at. And that means that even though we are feeling pretty low, pretty weak, pretty exhausted, pretty fatigued, you still got to stand up. You still got to stand there. You still got to hold the line. One thing that I think is going to definitely be a thing here this week is major temperature fluctuations. And I'm saying we're erring on the side of cold. Even if it's warm out, even if you should be sweating your ass off, you're going to be freezing. So much so that you're probably going to have to either dress in layers or sit in a warm bath. And it feels that way because there is a new energy coming in, and new energy is usually cold. Stuck and stagnant energy is usually hot. And so even though, new energy, it feels good and it's going to help us in the long run, it feels very, very intense when it first comes into our physical body, and we have to learn to acclimate and adjust to it. And of course, adjustment is never typically fun. So I definitely think that we have a lot to kind of look out for as far as, I'm going to say, just making sure that our defenses are up and are strong while protecting the not so strong self, both physically, emotionally, mentally, and energetically here this week. There's this element where, we have to continue to fight the good fight. We also have to kind of give ourselves a little bit of a break. And it's going to be a very hard spot to find ourselves in because, again, we feel like we're at wit's end. We feel like, a breakdown is definitely the major topic and theme. We're just anticipating the breakthrough. And that full moon in Aquarius, that is essentially what a breakdown and a breakthrough is going to look like. So the week that we are about to move into, building up to that full moon, is definitely going to feel like breakdown energy, because when we get that download of new consciousness, new information, new perspectives, new lens to look at life through, that is the breakthrough energy. And again, just a reminder, Uranus rules over that Aquarius energy, and you have to expect the unexpected with Uranus. And seeing as Uranus is currently in Gemini energy, and it will essentially be supporting this full moon in Aquarius in our headspace, it is, again, going to illuminate the division in the headspace before we find that sweet spot of amalgamating those very differentiate. You know what? I'm not editing that out either. I'm not even saying the word. We're taking the extreme ways of thinking, of feeling, of acting, and we are bridging the gap on it. That's what I'm trying to say. So with all of that being said, let me just remind you, Mercury is still retrograde here this week, does have a major factor on our headspace, which I think I've already talked about. But let me also just remind you that it rolls over communication as well. And communication isn't going so well for me here today. Don't know about y'all. But the rewiring of the headspace to align more with the heart space is still undergoing its change, its transformation. And I think the intensity of wrapping up this last week of Mercury's retrograde is definitely going to get at us as well. So again, I know I talked about the brain fog and the brain farts, but we also have to talk about the throat activations. And maybe you need to scream in a pillow. Maybe it's that you don't want to talk at all. Maybe it's that you're clearing your throat. Maybe one lymph node on one side of your throat is more swollen than the other. We have a lot of possibilities to see this energy manifest. And because we essentially all got rattled in a very artificial way here this week, the normal energy and ascension symptoms aren't going to clock the way that we used to be clocking them. And, we do have to kind of understand that we're going to be ending this week off at the very beginning of what is going to be a couple of very potent energy days. And just to give you a heads up, if you want to talk about all of the energy that is fluctuating specifically on August 11th, again, I'm going to recommend that you take a listen to that full-length forecast that I put out for August. We are definitely needing to get through this first 2 weeks of August before we're going to see some relief. And I would say that this first full week of August anyways, is the most trivial. It's the hardest. It is the one that is going to make us feel like we got nothing left to fight with. And then we get past this full moon in Aquarius. Mercury's going to go direct. Saturn and Uranus, they are going to sextile. They are going to help us out big time. And then we're going to have a lot of these galactic interactions and galactic downloads that are really going to catapult us into a little bit more of a favorable energy that will definitely be taking over and taking hold mid-August. So guys, that's all I have in me. I do apologize. This forecast is a lot shorter than I normally like to have them. Usually this is date night, and I apologize for cutting date night short. But again, I can hardly even see. I can hardly even breathe. I do not want to sit up anymore. I am not trying to complain, just trying to be transparent so that if you are going through it too, you know that you are not alone. I am going through it as well, and I know that I'm not the only one. I have a list of community members that have reached out to me just in the last couple of days that just feel like they are essentially energetically and physically dying as well. And again, the reason for that, artificial energetic shit show. So I thank you so much for tuning in. I send you nothing but love, and let's hope that this week is a lot more gentle on us than this past week was. I'm sending you nothing but love. We'll talk to you soon.